Veterans look like everyone, but we also look like no one. My day job is to literally give back to the military community. We're about 90,000 folks. We support veterans and military spouses transitioning, making the leap from service into sales and Salesforce specifically, or even in our ISVs and SI partners.
Knowing that there are roughly 17.3 million living veterans in the United States, if you were talking to a hiring manager and telling them you're a civilian, you want to hire a vet into the corporate world, tell me what they're getting when they hire a vet.
You're going to get someone that's resilient, that's going to roll up their sleeves and lead. You're getting someone who has made tough decisions quickly and has had to stick by those decisions no matter what.
Really, you're helping people take off one uniform and put on their Trailblazer hoodie.
At Salesforce, business is a platform for change, and we've held that belief and acted on that since the starting of the company. But that truly starts first with our people. We are the change makers, the builders, and the lifelong learners. We are AI native, and we showcase our values through the 1-1-1 model. Joy is our North Star, and it's brought to life by our people and our values. There are over 80,000 members of our Ohana, and they, our people, are our competitive advantage. This show is about the ones you haven't met yet. Here are the humans of Salesforce, and this is who we are.
Tom, tell us who you are. Give me the version of you that I'd meet at the cookout.
The version of me that you would meet at the cookout would probably talk about Michael Jordan
Okay.
being the GOAT. I mean, there is no debate, but there are
Debate.
There are people that debate.
Yes.
I'd debate you with whether or not Shohei Ohtani is the greatest baseball player of all time.
Okay.
I'd probably be talking about my dog. And then my 4 kids that I have, 2 from my current marriage and 2 from my past.
Yeah.
I'd probably be smoking like a pork shoulder.
Okay.
Lived in Memphis for 5 years.
Yeah.
So I'll smoke a nice little pork shoulder for a good 10 hours. That's really kind of it. Outside of that, that's kind of me.
I love that. And then all the stuff we're going to talk about today, we didn't talk about because smoking a pork shoulder is way more interesting.
Right. And Michael Jordan's way more
Yes,
interesting.
exactly. 25 years in the Navy. What does that actually mean for someone who's never served?
Well, we're in the Salesforce Tower.
Yes.
It's 1,070 feet long. If you lay it on its side and put it in the water, that's the length of an aircraft carrier.
Wow.
Think about living on this in the water for 10 months at a time. But then you start before that and you kind of build up to that. And you go to boot camp with roughly around 1,000 of your unknowns that become some of your best friends.
Yeah.
You are thrown into a 200-person barracks that doesn't smell the best, but you just enjoy trying to overcome, adapt, learn from each other, and just kind of figure out what the Navy's all about.
Yeah.
That's kind of initially what you would think of.
I love that analogy. Turn this tower as big as it is onto its side and throw it in the water. Let's talk about that transition from military. And well, first, tell us your day job, what you do here, and then that transferring those skills, like that transition.
Day job is also my yay job.
Okay.
I know we talked about like what a yay job is when you do when you did Vetforce. So I served in a certain capacity with Vetforce before, like after joining Salesforce, which is our employee resource group, also known as a business resource group, or now we're quality groups.
Right.
And after I did that, I took over this job. But during that time I was at Vetforce, I always called it my yay job because you got to get back to the military community for the folks internally. And then when this job announcement came up, I went all in on it.
Yeah.
And when I got the job, not only was it a promotion, it was great. I got to work with some of the most fantastic people in the company. Dean Robinson is one, and a whole slew of other folks, right? Yourself, Ali Siegel, you fill in the blank. Just like an amazing group of usual suspects. So my day job is to literally give back to the military community. We're about 90,000 folks in the community. We support veterans and military spouses transitioning, making the leap from service into sales and Salesforce specifically, or even in our ISVs and SI partners. We do that through 3 different methods. We call it a future-ready force. We focus on the free certifications that we give, 26 free certifications, 46 access to 46 Trailhead Academy classes. And then we also do it through the standard mentoring and networking. So those are our 3 pillars.
So our job essentially for Salesforce Military is to get service members transitioning out opportunities within our community and spouses.
And spouses, correct.
Excellent. So you're now running Salesforce Military. You help bring this to life. What did it feel like to take this on? So you said you've been at Salesforce in other capacities, you worked here, and then you saw this opportunity to take on military. And tell me what that opportunity was like for you.
It was humbling.
Yeah.
I have to say, I had some big shoes to follow. You think of the folks that kind of kicked it off. Think of Dan Streetman, think of Sam Allen, Ann Weavy. You think of Dean Robinson as well. And so to have to step into those shoes in this current role was a little overwhelming and humbling, to be quite honest. I got to work, like my first boss was one of the reasons why I joined Salesforce, because I saw this incredible year up in front of, thousands of people at Dreamforce, Leah McGowan Hare. So I had those sorts of influences. And when I took the role over, it was absolutely humbling. That was like the first impression. And then it was very like, okay, let's get this program back up and running to what it should be, which is really just getting back to the basics. We went from a program that was massively expanded to doing anything and everything it could to really kind of focusing on the crux of the issue. How do we get veterans and military spouses certified? How do we get them set up for success? Then how do we get them in front of the right people to get into the right companies for their journey?
You brought up an interesting point of military spouses, right? And I really realize that's an underserved community with a lot of unemployment because you're moving around with your spouse who's being, has to do service in different areas. Tell us why that is an important focus for us at Salesforce.
Well, the military spouses specifically suffer anywhere from 20 to 22% unemployment. It's such a dire situation for many military spouses, and it's critical. They're very different in veterans, and in many cases, for the military spouses that have joined Salesforce, are kind of blazing their own trail and setting their veterans that they've supported for years up, like to their own method of success and joining Salesforce in the footsteps of those military spouses.
Nice.
So to be able to like talk to those stories like Rachel Dishman, who set that up for massive success. Her husband, Ryan, left the Navy after she did all this to join Salesforce as well. Now they both work here. I think Salesforce does a really great job of really kind of seeing the value of veterans and military spouses. So when I talk about military spouses, we talk about it one and the same for veterans. Even though they're different, even though they have different roles, they're equally like marketable. And you're getting one of the best trained individuals in the school of life through a veteran and or military spouse.
I love that. But knowing that there are roughly 17.3 million living veterans in the United States, right? And I know these programs are global, right? But if you think about that, how do we help them interpret, service members interpret transferable skills, right? So how do those skills transfer to the Salesforce ecosystem? How are you helping them uncover that?
The way we translate military service into the Salesforce ecosystem and Salesforce in general, I like the way Dean put it. Dean likes to say, when he served in the Marine Corps and joined Salesforce, he took off one uniform and put on another one. And so there's so many transferable skills. You think of what it takes to be successful at Salesforce. Can you tell stories? Can you manage change? Can you adapt and overcome? Like there's a term that we use in the Navy, it's called Semper Gumby. Like you're literally a change manager, adapt and overcoming. And you kind of drive success in ways that most people don't. And then you throw in the leadership aspect that we get in the military.
Right.
I mean, there's junior enlisted folks that are leading 100 to 200 people at a time. Like we're talking E3 level. And then you have your first job as an officer and you're leading, multiple divisions, if you will.
Absolutely. If you were talking to a hiring manager and telling them, you're a civilian, you want to hire a vet into the corporate world, tell me what they're getting when they hire a vet.
If I'm telling a hiring manager what they're supposed to get from a military veteran and or spouse, you're going to get someone that's resilient, that's going to roll up their sleeves and lead. You're also going to get someone that's going to be innovative. I think there's a big misconception that military members, because they chose military service, are just directed to do whatever they can. All too often, people forget that, like in the military, there's situations that require immediate decisions with million-dollar effects, and in some cases, life-altering decisions that people put people's lives at risk. So you're getting someone who has made tough decisions quickly and has had to stick by those decisions no matter what. And then they have to learn and adapt and overcome the situations that were not necessarily positive.
Right.
So if they lost a friend, if they, God forbid, a ship crashed and they had to, fill holes in the walls to keep the ship from sinking, or they missed something on the radar that caused damage to their own, unit. There's just a whole slew of things that people get that I think you underestimate from a veteran population. So
yeah. I love it. When I think about a veteran population, I love mission focused. Dean told me grit/resilience, right? Those are two things. Innovation and then just kind of seeing something through, right? That adaptability.
Yeah,
All
absolutely.
skills that we need here at Salesforce. Let's talk about AI. Everything Salesforce is AI fluency, agent blazer, learning, education. How is this translating to our military community? How are they taking on the trails or using Trailhead? Tell me about that.
Well, if you look at what Julie Workman's doing
Mhm.
here at Salesforce and the things that she's doing with AI, it's wild the kind of apps that she's building for her kids, the kind of apps that she's building day to day, and she's a military spouse.
Uh-huh.
So I think there's so many stories that we're not aware of that those sorts of things are happening. You have an organization like Bright Helm Partners who's implementing Agentforce at scale, getting Slack just so they can get the Slackbot piece. And that's a prior senior chief, which is an E8 in the Navy, woman owned, but Navy experienced. And those are the kind of stories that you think of when you think of AI. For me personally, I love Slackbot, obviously.
Yes.
I bounce between Slackbot, Gemini, I don't know if I'm allowed to say GPT,
Yes.
just for my day-to-day, whether it's like, you know, helping out with an email or automatic responses to you fill in the blank message, to the level of like, hey, it's World Cup season. And so I had an icebreaker that I had to say, it's World Cup season. Assign a country to me based on what you've seen in the last 2 months and give me a 1 to 2 sentence reason why you made that choice on what country to give. Of course, they gave USA because I run the Salesforce Military program, and the energy and the camaraderie that the World Cup I think is truly like sharing with the world right now. And it was kind of like for me, like just reading that prompt and why Slackbot decided to give me the USA, almost like a little full circle moment for me, even though it's just a little icebreaker. So in addition to the day-to-day and all the great stuff that and the power that AI brings, there's also the fun stuff that you can kind of leverage as well. So I think there's a lot of military veterans that do that.
Yeah. That is really fun. Let's talk about VTO or volunteering. I think there's a lot of opportunities at Salesforce for our employees that we've just reached an amazing milestone of 10 million all-time giving hours, but we can't stop and we can still volunteer even though we're a high-performing culture. Tell us about some ways that we can volunteer or get involved. I know Vetforce is the obvious. Join the BRG, support the ERG as a ally, but tell us about how this veteran community is really driving VTO.
Well, I think the veteran community does a great job. I always tell Allie, veterans look like everyone, but we also look like no one. Like if you see Dean Robinson, he looks like a Marine Corps veteran. Like you look at me, like you can't pick what service that I lived. You may not even know that I served.
Right.
But so I say that because one of the best VTO experiences that I've had at Salesforce is volunteering with Outforce. And not the parade, but the AIDS Memorial Grove in the Golden Gate Park. So Outforce partnered with Vetforce and a couple other, I think Asia Pac Force and another BRG. And you go in and you like plant trees and you go in and you clean up the AIDS Memorial Grove. And it's just a really beautiful, if you haven't been to the AIDS Memorial Grove in Golden Gate Park, that's one to do. Peter Vicenzo is the one that puts it out, and he's always like bringing Vetforce into the fold. So that's one of the things that I like to give back. And then just leaning in and, you know, jumping into Bold Force and the MLK parade that we had, I think in January. And then I think of like the Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month and Asia Pac Forces Parade and that sort of thing. So veterans, you know, span the cross, like they span every, you know, employee resource group for that matter.
Oh, I love that.
That's how we get involved.
So there's so many veterans among us, as you said, people you know served or didn't serve. Tell us some of our unsung heroes at Salesforce.
Well, I mean, first, when you think of veterans that have served, that are serving at Salesforce, the one that pops to mind the most is obviously Katie Cook, right? First female Blue Angel pilot. But I think a lot of people don't realize her husband also served as a Blue Angel pilot.
Wow.
Dusty Cook. So he's crushing sales. She's crushing sales strategy. You think of those. You think of Dean Robinson, you know, in his current capacity, Marine Corps veteran. You think of Larry Dillard. He's a chief customer success officer for Mission Force right now. You think of Jimmy Maloney, crushing it for sales. I don't know where he's at, but he's a big name. Then there's the folks here in San Francisco. Folks like Terry Guyton, Marine Corps veteran, enlisted side, went through his MBA program at UNC, is now crushing sales strategy under Katie Cook's team. So there's a whole slew of veterans that people may or may not know. I mean, I served in the Navy, right? I'm kind of no one, right? But those folks are really well known in the community.
Yeah. One of my favorite Salesforce moments is right as the pandemic was coming to an end, I was in a program, Customer Zero Storytelling, where we go talk to customers about different things we're doing at Salesforce. And I got a call to go to the Air Force Academy, and they wanted to talk about allyship and culture. And I was like, me? And can a vet do this, or why me? And the sales leader, who also was a vet at the time, was like, nope, I want you to come. You got to come. We're going to show up. We're going to do this. And it was right outside of Colorado Springs. And it was this amazing opportunity. And I was there, and a person who ran the United Airlines pilot diversity program, right? And what was so astounding was I said, okay, I'm going to talk to military people. I don't want to come across preachy. So I'm going to use humor, right? That's all I got. Humor is going to be my unlock. And when I tell you it was one of the most rewarding, successful speaking moments of my career, questions were super tough, really black or white, right? So I really kind of not only saw command control, but like, okay, we're going to do the right thing is basically what was communicated to me. We're going to do the right thing for everyone in the vet. And I mean, everyone in this unit. And it really showed me how mission focused everyone was. Like it was very clear. This is the boss. He said, we're doing this. This is what we're doing. It was like their version of a V2 mom, but it was people. Like we're moving people. And then I had the opportunity of someone who worked for them, now works at Salesforce. Her name is Michelle. She's in sales. And it's like one of my greatest opportunities working here and one of my greatest learning lessons. And it really just showed me this is a room of people on one accord, mission focused, and like, we're going to do the right thing. And it just reminded me of what's the best of Ohana, right? It was such a rewarding experience for me. Tell me what experience at Salesforce has really brought you joy.
Well, what's really brought me joy here is obviously getting to work with people like you. And that story reminds me of like the importance of allyship, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our chief quality officer, her name is literally spelled like ally, right?
Ally the ally.
Ally the ally. And so it's absolutely critical for like the success of any employee resource group. As someone who lives in San Francisco, serves in Vetforce, now Salesforce Military, there's a lot of unconscious bias in the Bay Area against military members that you wouldn't necessarily get in Georgia or Indianapolis, but maybe the LGBTQIA plus community would get in Atlanta or in Indianapolis. So I feel like the importance of allyship is absolutely critical to any business resource group, and most importantly, in my opinion, for veterans, because a lot of folks are like, well, I'm not a veteran, so I don't know how to get involved. I think your story is like a perfect example of not only can you get involved, it can be career gratifying, but it can also spell out what a veteran or military spouse needs to succeed in the corporate world. Because without allies, I wouldn't know what to do. I mean, you could leverage Dean, but he may not be the end all be all for a decision.
We can't all call Dean, but
you can't all call Dean, but you can call other hiring managers that are open to those sorts of situations.
Absolutely.
But what brings me joy is obviously the people, hands down.
Yeah, absolutely. It does. The people. Do you have a superpower? A superpower at work? You have one besides grilling? Besides grilling or smoking meat?
Besides smoking shoulders. I would say my superpower is probably empathy.
Nice. Yeah.
I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I definitely have a pretty high EQ. I can read a conversation or read a room and see the veteran or maybe someone else just sitting over there by themselves, and I'm comfortable walking up and talking to them and trying to get them included in things.
That's a good one. What's your favorite Slackbot prompt?
I looked at the questions beforehand, and my favorite Slackbot prompt, it gave me a couple that I had used before, but what it gave me was a more important readout of how often I use Slackbot. So it's not necessarily one prompt. It's definitely like, hey, tell me all the open opportunities with this, account, and tell me the open pipe and ACV and all those sorts of like standard things.
Yes.
But then also talk to me about this person I'm getting ready to meet. Like, tell me what I need to know. Tell me like the top things I should like focus on. And here's he or she's or LinkedIn profile. And so that helps me with customer meetings and, talking with folks. So yeah, it's not necessarily one prompt. It's just
the preparation,
and the ability to like give one thing to Slackbot and it gives you this perfect readout.
My latest prompt I did was asking Slackbot to grade me, right? Because I felt like I use it a lot for resurface this doc, resurface this channel or this conversation. And it was very kind of humbling and actually reassuring. Like, you're doing some things great, but let me tell you how to dial it in. Which Salesforce value resonates the most with you? And I'm careful not to say your favorite because, it's like naming your favorite child. But which value resonates with you, or you've had the most recent like reminder of how valuable it is to you?
I think hands down it's equality.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. Tell me more.
Well, I mean, for a pasty white guy in the Bay Area that's a little bit older, to be able to be his authentic self at work just goes without saying. And that's some of the greatest qualities that Salesforce brings. And I think
Right.
that boils down to equality.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously innovation, customer success, all of that, and trust and sustainability, obviously, but equality for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we recognize we need all those values, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes one speaks to us. Finish this thought for me. I show up every day because.
Because of the people. Really.
Mhm.
That's what it boils down to.
Right.
One more thing that you didn't ask me about
Yes.
in what we do in the military. And there's this thing called a challenge coin. I know
Okay.
you had mentioned you had received one, but the way that a challenge coin works is
Mhm.
that if you are going to a happy hour, as an
Yes.
example, with your team,
Uh-huh.
the person who has the coolest coin
Yes.
may be the one buying the drink. But if you don't have a coin and everybody else does, you're the one that buys the first round.
Okay.
So when you go to a happy hour with me, Molly, you
Yes.
make sure you have a coin.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And now, this is very impressive. My challenge coin, Salesforce Military. I do want to show mine off because I'm super proud of it. Mine is from the Air Force Academy.
Wow. From the superintendent, it looks like.
Yes. It was
Three-star
a general. Yes.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love it.
Absolutely. And I was told what an honor it is to have this. And this was after my experience talking to them about Salesforce.
It really is. It's definitely
Absolutely.
an honor.
Thank
That's
you so
awesome.
much.
Thank
I
you, Molly.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
And now I have my own challenge coin. I'm ready. Dreamforce, they're not ready for me. I'm walking
No,
in.
That's right.
I'm
That's
walking
right.
in
I love
Dreamforce
it.
bars like, hey, happy hour,
Yeah.
here I come.
That's right.
Good. So Tom, you went from naval combat to building a community that really changes lives. And I love that you said taking off one uniform for another, but really you're helping people take off one uniform and put on their Trailblazer hoodie.
True.
Yeah. So thank you for your service
Thank
and all
you.
you do for Salesforce. I really appreciate having you.
Thank you, Molly. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us at Humans of Salesforce. I'm Molly Q. Ford, and I really appreciate you.